Bienvenue, benvenuti, and welcome to Expatriotical, the podcast for expats, travelers, and other adventurous souls. I'm Chandra, and after living as an expat with my husband and 4 children in 2 different countries for almost 6 years, I've learned the arts of pivoting during pitfalls, traveling tastefully for less, and soaking in amazing new cultures without losing your own. Join me as we dive into the joys and challenges of travel and the expat life in every episode. Ciao, everyone. How are you? I hope that your summer has been amazing so far and that you have maybe gotten a bit of travel in. And traveling is a lot of what we are going to be talking about today with my guest and dear friend Nikki as we conclude the interview that we started last week. But first, I want to do a bit of a recap or refresher on what we said last week, especially when Nikki covered the 4 concerns that women especially may have when they are thinking about traveling solo. And those are 1, safety, 2, overcoming loneliness, 3, am I okay seeing this by myself, and 4, other people's negative opinions. Nikki so kindly laid those out and then offered tips for how to get around, fix, or overcome those concerns. For safety, staying in an area where there are nicer hotels, but not necessarily in those hotels. We're going for budget friendly, and being back to your accommodation by around 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night. For loneliness, schedule group activities for yourself, like free walking tours, etc. And for overcoming other people's negative opinions, being selective, or shall I even say discerning about who you allow to speak into this area of your life. But the one that I wanted to go back to during my time with Nikki was the 3rd point, which is, am I okay with seeing this by myself? And that is where we will jump back into the conversation. But first, again, as I said in last week's episode, excuse my voice, I'm overcoming the last little bit of a cold, and the intro and outro of this episode is being recorded at a different time than the interview. But nonetheless, I think you're going to love the rest of this interview. So listen in. Okay, so let's go back and touch on your number 3 point that you gave. And that was, I wanted to go here, when I got married, or I wanted to go with my husband, but he can't, or that sort of thing. And my thoughts on that are, maybe the right question is, do I want to wait for that? Or do I want to look back when I'm in my 70s or 80s or whatever and say, man, I coulda, woulda, shoulda gone there. Is that kind of, was that kind of a paradigm shift that you had that helped you to be like, you know what, I'm just going to do it?
Yeah. I kind of grew up a bit different, and I wasn't really ever waiting for someone per se. It just kind of hit me more later on in life, I'm doing air quotes, 29, 30, 31, 32, when kind of things are shifting in your friend group, things you thought should be shifting for you, and they aren't. And I think for me, it was the decision of, am I still going to continue to do this, continue to see the world, but continue to see it on my own? I have been traveling at that point for maybe 10, 12 years, doing all sorts of things with my friends.
Yeah.
But now, am I willing to continue the ride by myself if need be? And that was the deeper question that I had to ask myself, that I think a lot of women are asking themselves. I put myself, in the shoes of, let's say, military spouses, right? Mm-hmm. You don't have to be, quote unquote, single to experience going somewhere by yourself or moving somewhere by yourself. Maybe you moved and he gone. Mm-hmm. He gone. You know what I mean? I see some of my friends in that situation, and am I still going to enjoy the city by myself? Am I still going to go out and make friends? Am I still going to I've got a lot of friends in Washington, D.C. whose husbands have big jobs. It's a big job city. Meaning, really important, he's gone all the time. He's on a plane 2 weeks out of the month. Am I still going to take advantage of this trip with my girlfriends or see the city by myself? So it's a question I think that a lot of women are asking themselves.
Yes, I definitely think so. And I think that some of the things that you said really speak not only to women that are 20, 30 or whatever. But I also think, like, I think of people personally in my life that maybe they are widowed and they're older, but they want to go places. They really want to go
Exactly.
places, you know, like, and it's just sitting back and think like, oh, am I going to do this by myself, or am I going to, or maybe it is to try to get somebody. You talked about the tours, like, go with a tour. You're not by yourself then. You know, go with a tour, do a cruise, do it, you know, whatever, where you're going to meet people. There's going to be people out there. There are ways to travel.
And that was a big eye opener for me when my two girlfriends came from my company in Washington, D.C., and they're like, we're not alone. I'm like, oh, it just opened my eyes to, yes, maybe you've traveled there by yourself, but that location, you're not by yourself. And I'm a big extrovert, so being alone is really challenging for me. And so that was a big hurdle for me of quote unquote being alone. But you're not alone because you're scheduling things for yourself. You're going out with other people. You never know who you're going to meet. And it's, if you can just kind of wrap your mind around the fact that you won't be alone if you sign up for something, go be friendly. I have an introvert friend. She's based in New York City. She would say herself as a big introvert. She has shocked me because she goes on these tours, and I've never been on them, meaning a week in Zambia, a week in El Salvador, lion chasing, I'm making that up, elephant hunting, elephant watching, not hunting, elephant watching in the Sahara or the Kenya. I don't know where she went. And I said to her, but friend, you're a bit of an introvert. How do you deal with like being with people all the time? Like you're in the same hotels. Sometimes you're sharing a room to save costs. And she's, you know, in her early 40s. And she's like, I'm not an introvert on these trips. And it pushes me to get outside of myself.
Okay.
It pushes me to talk to people. So I know some introverts may be listening like, oh, I could never just go up and talk to somebody. You'd be very, very, very surprised what you're doing. And everyone's out of their comfort zone. People are ready to kind of mix and mingle in the tourism kind of sense because everyone's been thrown into this situation where they're like, all right, let's be friends for the next 2.5 hours as we walk around the city.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also a way that you talked about it, even with just what you did in Munich, like extending your business trip and that sort of thing. But let's say you had gone, you'd always wanted to see Munich, you wanted to go to Oktoberfest or something like that, you know, and you go out there and with what you did, I mean, it's 2 hours, you know, you don't, for those people that are, because you and I are both extroverts, but for those people that are like, you know, it kind of depletes me a little bit. Okay, cool. So 2 hours of your day, you will get, you know, you'll have the chance to socialize, to not be alone. And then if you want to go back to the hotel room, just chill out, you have that option. But if you're still feeling spry, you can go have, you know, a beer because you're at Oktoberfest with these new friends that you've made on your walking tour, you know, that kind of thing. So I think
exactly.
The world is your oyster because it's very versatile and open, and there's lots of different ways you can play it depending on your personality type and that sort of thing. So
I think it just depends on, I think it's getting that first trip under your belt to really see and experience, oh, this isn't as scary as I thought it was going to be. I am meeting other people. And like you said, I mean, I'm an extrovert, but I don't typically enjoy small talk. And so even after maybe 3 or 4 hours of kind of like the small talk, maybe I'll have another dinner in me to have dinner with some people that I just met. But after that, I'm kind of done with the small talk, as it were, and I'm back at my hotel planning the next day's events. So I'm with you.
Yeah. And so do you have any other tips? I know you gave us our 4 points to like really think about, and you kind of really laid out some, especially for the safety. I really appreciate that because that's a huge concern on a girl's mind, is like, a woman's mind, excuse me. I still talk like girls and boys and guys. And
I do too. I love it.
That's how I talk. Okay. But do you have any other tips that come to mind that you could share with somebody, especially if it's their first time venturing out? And if you've shared them all, then I have so many more questions. So we're good.
The only other thing I can think with the tips thing is I swear by Rick Steves' guidebook.
Okay.
I love Rick. I
you and Chris.
Rick.
Chris.
Yes, I do. I mean, again, that's what I cut my teeth on. All we had back in the day, quote unquote, again, air quotes, we didn't have Google on the phones. We had a flip phone, and I'll meet you at the hotel at 6 p.m. or the hostel at 6 p.m. All we had was a Rick Steves guidebook, and that was sufficient to greatly enjoy the city. I was in Scotland with my family, as you know, 3 weeks ago. I do get around, and I brought Rick. And it was a book from Scotland about 10 years ago, and I just brought it, and we did St. Andrews, and we did a bit in Edinburgh, and I love Rick. So any other tips I have? I think I would say if you're venturing out and getting started, start small. Don't
Yeah.
if it's not in your nature to do a solo trip to Kenya as your first rodeo.
Yeah.
Don't do it. My first rodeo was Iceland, which was only for 48 hours. I thought, well, I can handle 48 hours, right? And Dublin for 48 hours. I mean, this is not so far away.
Yeah.
This is not so crazy. Now, some of the solo girls have made go to Vietnam and Cambodia. That's on my list. That would be a whole other level of safety information. I probably would go with a tour company because I don't know Asia that well. I'm very comfortable in Europe, a bit in Africa, some in Central America. I don't really have a lot of experience in Southeast Asia or in Asia in general. So I'm going to be probably with a tour company in a hotel. People will know where I am with a guidebook, you know?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I love that. So you've talked about different locations. To you, where has been the most exotic location that you have been to?
Oh, to me. I'm glad you prefaced that to me. I was thinking about this. My trip to Morocco, I don't know if I knew you then. Maybe I had just met you.
Maybe, or just before.
Just before. I took up surfing a couple years ago as a new hobby to add to all the craziness, and some friend of mine, colleague, recommended surfing in Morocco. I saw her Instagram page that she was surfing. I'm like, where are you at? So she's like, Morocco. I'm like, I looked it up. I talked to her, right? I talked to her, got some tips. Where'd she go? What'd you fly into? How was it? Booked it. It was a literal adventure. It was staying at a surf camp, and the beach had a mixture of ATVs, dogs, people selling mint tea, horses were on the beach, camels were on the beach, and us surfing. Like, it was the most wild experience. And that was an experience that started out kind of iffy, and you make it better. So for all those out there, like, sometimes you don't have a great experience, but you still learn from it. So this is my adventure. I had never been to Morocco. Land in Agadir, which is on the coast, go to Tagazout. I arrived. It didn't look at all like I thought it was going to be, nor were the accommodations, and surf camp. I'm like, oh, heavens. So then I had heard someone on the bus. Again, but you're still with a group. Like, we had morning yoga, surfing all day, evening yoga, dinner. I'm not alone.
Yeah.
I'm just never alone. But I did overhear some girl move surf camps up the road, and so I kind of moved surf camps up the road, and then that wasn't sufficiently good for me to kind of feel okay, and I just moved to a hotel because I'm like, I just have different standards at this age, and I'm like, I will join you all on the beach. I just flat out left surf camp and moved to a hotel. I went to Marrakesh and stayed at this gorgeous resort, and so it just depends on what you want. So I had the adventure. I mean, I'm on the beach, I'm surfing amongst camels, and my surf the stories are insane. I mean, my surf lessons in French, which is fine, but like, it's so wild. And then I'm at this literally 7-star resort. If you've never tried La Mamounia in Marrakesh, it is amazing. It is crazy expensive, but I wanted the experience. And all of a sudden, I'm in the lap of luxury. I walk in. They take my bags, which is not abnormal, but they take my passport, they check me in, there's chandeliers, like I'm being escorted to my room, like I don't have to do anything. It was just extraordinary. And so there's so many varied levels of experiences you can have as solo girl traveling, depending on the price point that you want, the experience that you want, the adventure level that you want. I mean, looking back, I'm like, surfing in Morocco, I guess that was kind of adventurous, but I didn't feel like it at the time.
No, it's super adventurous.
People are like, oh my gosh, surfing in Morocco. But what they don't see is me talking to my friend, getting all the tips. What they don't see is the hours of research. What they don't see is me choosing an accommodation that I think is pretty. What they don't see is me landing and being like, oh, this ain't gonna work, and switching accommodations. You know what I mean? So
I think that that's a really good point that I try. I mean, it's literally in like the opening of the thing is about pivoting. And so of the podcast, I said the thing. So basically in this life of being an expat, you really have to learn to pivot. And I think that that is a great takeaway for solo girl travel, is just like, this isn't working. How can I pivot? Like, how can I change? This is not what I thought it was going to be. How can I fix this? And that's what you did. You went like, okay, the surfing part, this is great, but like, I can't stay here. So that kind of thing.
Yeah, and it makes for funny stories. And so the text message that I sent my friends, and that's the other thing that helps me beat loneliness, is I'm, again, being an extrovert like you, I'm in constant contact with my friends in DC, my friends all over who would think that this situation is funny. So I feel like I have people along for the ride with me. And it makes me, so I'm like leaving this hotel, I'm literally hopping in a cab to take me to Marrakesh, which is about a 2.5 hour cab ride across the country, deserts, mountains. I'm sure he could have abducted me if he wanted to. But I'm like, all right, this is the adventure, and this is how we travel, and this is what it's going to be, and this is part of it. So I think pivoting is huge. And I think that, especially in today's age of the iPhone and Google, I mean, I had cell phone service all in the mountains of Morocco. I'm still making a phone call. Like, you're just never at this point in time in human history off the grid, or off the grid for that long. So as long as you have a functioning credit card and a pair of shoes, I think you can get yourself out of anything.
All right, that's good. So would you say, because that sounds like a really memorable trip, would you say that Morocco was your most memorable, or which one has been like, no, actually it was this one. It just stands out.
That was pretty memorable. It was kind of, I wouldn't say it's traumatic, but like it was all the things. It was just all the things. I mean, the wetsuits were dirty, the boards were dirty, the beach was dirty. How did I find myself in this situation? What is happening in my life? Why am I here? My friends were like, why are you there? I mean, I don't know why I'm here. And so it was memorable in that respect. Like, a lot happened in that week. I think another memorable, I mean, they're all pretty memorable, but one, there's sometimes there's some surprises when you travel. So I wanted to see the Nordics, finish off the Nordics. I'd have been to so many of the Nordics, but wanted to kind of check off the box Finland and Sweden. Booked another solo trip by myself. Again, we're staying downtown. We're getting decently nice hotels. Tours are being booked. And so I am having very sanitized experiences, as it were. But I landed in Helsinki, and it was just such a surprise in terms of its beauty. The people were great. I had no idea about Finnish sauna culture. Ooh. How there are more saunas in Finland than people.
What?
Again, didn't know that. I didn't know that. Some guy on the plane told me. And every hotel has a sauna. They are in their saunas, the Finns in the saunas. So I thought, I gotta try it. You gotta try everything once. So there's a sauna in our hotel, and there's a whole sauna culture. I was training for a marathon at the time, and so I had to find a pool to swim in because it was too cold to run outside in Helsinki that day. And it was an experience. The pool and the sauna, you tend not to wear a lot of clothes in the sauna. I'm like, I'm not quite sure I'm okay with it. Like, it's just, here we go, cultural experiences. I'm going to find a sauna where we can wear our bathing suit. And it was a sauna on the Baltic Sea that's pretty famous for Finland and Helsinki. And I went to that, and tons of expats. I mean, I'm meeting Americans in the sauna. We're drinking drinks. Talking about, where are you from? We're jumping in the Baltic Sea, because that was the thing where you get into the hot sauna and then you walk outside on the ice. Why am I here? And we lower ourselves into the sea, of which there's floating ice panels, because it was still so cold in March in Finland. And I'm like, this is an experience. And for the next 60 minutes, I'm with you people. And you're just never alone.
That's
you're
really
just
good.
Never alone. So Finland, I've been back to, based on that trip, went back to Helsinki. I liked Helsinki that much. What else is memorable? When I got thrown off the train in Germany as a 19-year-old, it wasn't my fault. That wasn't solo girl travel, but speaking of pivoting, I was with my friend Canadian. We were on this famous study abroad year. We were doing a whole tour, fly to Munich, train to Dresden, see the concentration camps, into Prague, and then Czech Republic, then onward. We were on the overnight train from, I think, Munich to Prague. We were going to the Czech Republic. Overnight train, bunks, we're sleeping, it's 2 a.m. All of a sudden we hear this boom, boom, boom on the door. 2 a.m.
Oh my
You
goodness.
can just imagine. It's like 2002. I mean, there's who are we going to call for help? So, and then it was doing passport control. It was the Czech police or something. Fine. They check our passports. We dig them out. We're groggy. They leave. I swear, a half an hour later, boom, boom, boom. Like, they're back. And they check my passport. They check my friends. And they're, like, screaming in Czech. Like, it's 3 a.m, like, screaming in Czech. And I'm like, we're both like, what is happening? And all I remember them saying was, all we could understood was, you no go, you get off.
Oh.
Next stop. You get off, next stop. And I mean, you're not freaking out, but you're like, wait a second. And so she's kind of obviously a little bit freaking out. And he said, no visa. So apparently at that time, Canadian citizens needed a visa to get into the Czech Republic. And we had gotten a Rick Steves guidebook from the earlier year, not this year.
And it changed. It
changed. And so he's like, you no go. And we're like, get off, next stop. We don't know where we are. There's no blue dot on a map that we can look at. We don't know where we are on the road. Are we in Germany? Are we in the Czech? Where are we? And literally, I'll never forget it. She's my sweet friend. She's like, save yourself. You go on into the Czech Republic. I'm like, I'm not leaving you. I'm not leaving. We are together. And so we get dressed, we get our backpacks, and they let us out into the German night. It was pitch black. It was some know-nothing train station.
Oh, my goodness.
And we were 19, and it was like, figure it out. And there's no Google Maps. So we get off, we go into the train station, we look at the map, we figure out where we are, and then we kind of look at a bigger map. Okay, this is where we are in Germany. We're not too far. Because it's, 6 hours earlier in the States, I call my mom in Michigan. I'm like, hi. She's like, hi. I'm like, so I'm here in Germany. We're looking to pivot because we can't go in. I could go in, but I'm not leaving her. What are some Germany cities that we can get to? How far is Berlin? So I'm problem solving on the phone with my mother. It's 11 p.m. in Michigan. It was 4 a.m. in Germany. We're just we're working the problem. And it was too much to fly to Berlin. Too much was the train. And we just had to wait until the train station lady got there at 5, 6 a.m. We were just sleeping. We were just in the train station, pitch dark. Waiting for her to come. And so we looked at what's the next biggest city. It was Dresden. We got put on a train to Dresden. By 9 a.m., we had found a hostel in Dresden. We checked in, and all of a sudden, that day, we were seeing Dresden. That was not on the itinerary.
Okay.
Not on the itinerary. We had the best time. We had the best day in Dresden. It was the most beautiful city. It was totally unexpected. And then the next day, we met up in Vienna, but I went the original train through Czech Republic, spent a couple hours in Prague, hated it. Continue on to Vienna, and she had to take a longer train that went around the Czech Republic.
Wow.
And it was like, we had each other's phone numbers, but it was like, I'll see you at our booked hostel at 8 p.m. tonight. Hope you're there. Wow. Like, we just had to separate. I mean, and we met up that night at 8 p.m. in the hostel in Vienna. We were texting each other, are you okay? Like, it was a different era, and it was shocking. We didn't know anything different, but looking back on it, I'm like, that could have gone really bad.
Yeah.
But you okay, let's work the problem. Like, we're together. Like, we're gonna wait till the train station opens. We know how to read a map. We can call people, collect at the time, which wasn't thrilling for my family. But you just work the problem, and you pivot, and you try something new, and maybe that didn't work out, and yeah. So those are my most infamous stories.
There you go. I like that. Is there a place, okay, you already mentioned Helsinki, but like a place that you think, I just loved it so much, I want to go back. I just want to go back.
I don't know. I tend to be kind of one-timer.
Okay.
With the exception of the south of France and Helsinki.
I was going to say the south of France.
South of France, I've been back. Helsinki, I've been back. There's some places I don't mind going. Like, London's fine. I was in Munich again this week. But I tend to focus more on the bucket list than previous locations.
Okay. Well, we are going to dive into a few questions that I like to ask all of my guests. And it's going to go more to being expat-centric. What has been your favorite thing about being an expat?
I think my most favorite thing has always been the bilingual lifestyle. I enjoy working in both languages. I enjoy the challenge. I enjoy the way your brain twists and turns, and talking to people in like their language helps you get to know them more. And
yes.
That's the complexity about, because Washington, D.C. is a pretty international city, but adding that other layer of you're speaking another language, you're in and out, that I think part is really, really, really cool. And living in Europe specifically, having all these locations be so close by,
Mm-hmm.
I could be like I went to Munich for 48 hours this week. I mean, the flight was an hour. It's you don't even it doesn't even register now as a trip. And Scotland 2 weeks ago, that's an hour and 30 minutes. Now, I don't know what it's like to live in Asia and what the distances are, but I think that would probably be for me the traveling, the availability of travel, and living a bilingual life.
I like that. I really like that you're the first person to say living the bilingual life. I think that it is interesting getting to know people when you're speaking to them in their own language. And granted, French, I don't qualify at all, but I will say that the last year that we lived in Italy, so by that time I'm fluent in Italian. I'm not saying could give a doctorate thesis, a doctor's but I can speak.
Yeah.
And it was really fun as we were hiking in Cinque Terre, which is my favorite place in the world.
Oh,
and
gorgeous.
we've got ourselves and the 4 kids, and I mean, Caleb was like 3 years old at the time, but we're all doing it, and we're passing this group of, I think it's either 2 or 3 couples, and they're in their like later 50s, maybe early 60s, and they start to talk, and then understanding their jokes, and because they're letting us pass them, right, and understanding their jokes, and then everybody laughing together. It was just really, it was a very standout moment for me where I'm like, I get it enough. I got his joke. This is great, because
That's
a lot
a
of
big
times
step.
it is a big step, because a lot of times, there's stuff that gets lost and in translation with the humor or things contextually. So that's really, I like that. I like that you love the challenge, and then that is an enriching experience for you. So, okay. Another question. What is your most cherished memory so far that you can share? That's something shareable, that you feel comfortable sharing that you've had during your expat adventure. And that can be this last 5 years, that could also be from, your first time as an 18-year-old.
Yeah. Cherished memory. One that comes to mind immediately, I surprised my mother a couple years ago with a trip to Greece and a trip to Venice. That was about 2.5 years ago. And I didn't, she had said she wanted to go to Venice at one point in life, but I wasn't sure it was this point in time in life. And so I had booked the tickets, and she was already here in Paris, and I just surprised her. And we were on a plane, practically the next day. And I was taking her back to a place that I had been before, Santorini, to a specific resort. And it's just an outstanding resort. It's overlooking the water. It's out of control. And just to see her enjoy it. To see her enjoy the surprise, to see her enjoy Santorini, and then to see her enjoy Venice, and to live out, I think what she said was a childhood dream. I mean, she really liked that. I think I got that right. But that was something recent memory that I cherish. Yeah, but when I was 18, everything's new and exciting. All the lights are on. I think Switzerland was a standout for me, just in terms of the Alps. Living in Michigan, this is different, I guess, from you growing up where you grew up. We just don't have mountains, and I had never seen a mountain before. And so to have the Alps looming above you, to go up into the Alps, to go to, if you had not been before, to all your listeners, or maybe to yourself, Grindelwald, in the Jungfrau region of Switzerland, is gorgeous. These gondolas that take you from like stop to stop, and ski place to ski place. It is magical. And just to be like, this is magic. This is so magic. I wish that everyone get a chance to experience this, and to have it at such a, relatively speaking, young age, was really cool.
So it's okay. Just for clarification, you are saying that you had not yet, until going to Switzerland, been in the mountains. Is that correct?
At 18, yes, I had never seen a mountain. I mean,
amazing.
Just never. We never went out west in the United States. I mean, from Michigan, so I don't know if we even have hills. And then for vacation, we always flew to Florida or went to Missouri. So I had just never seen elevation, period.
Okay. And I think that, like, even me being from Colorado, where I grew up in a mountain valley town, that's where I grew up until 8th grade. But I would say that I was kind of a snob, can I be honest? I was just like, mountains are mountains, mountains are mountains. And then I went to Vail for the first time, like
Oh, yeah.
after leaving Colorado and living in Texas and California, there's mountains there. And then I went back and visited a friend in Vail, and I was like, oh, like I just didn't realize. It was just stunning. And I would say that is Switzerland is definitely like that, where you're just like, this is not. I mean, there's just different calibers of mountains. You know what I'm saying? And I don't actually mean elevation. That's obvious. But I just think you can, even people that grew up in the mountains, it would be something it's a worthwhile experience to go because it's gorgeous.
It's majestic. It just gives me a sense of that old word of awe. I mean, there's not a lot of things that we as humans are in awe of anymore, but to be in awe of that was a really good human experience.
I think so. Okay, my final question for you, Nikki. Is there anything else, any last thoughts, words of wisdom, words of encouragement that you'd like to share with us today?
I think the getting over the fear of going, a couple girlfriends of mine recently kind of got passports in the past 5 years, have taken international trips with me. Oh, let me back up. Memorable trip. A year and a half ago, it took me and my closest girlfriends to Turks and Caicos.
Ooh.
And it was for my 40th birthday. It was all the things. It was blue water. It was this gorgeous house on the hill. It was our own private pool, our own private driver, like boat trip, our own private boat for a couple hours out of the Ritz-Carlton. It was a trip of a lifetime. So add that to the bucket of memorable like birthdays and those kinds of things. But any last tips? I would say go for it. Like, as long as you have like the safety stuff down, like, okay, people know where I am. I'm going to join these couple of tours just to kind of see the city and feel safe and get my bearings. I would say the biggest factor for me in terms of keeping going and encouragement has been other people. Like, I'm thankful, and I'm sure you have this too, like an army of girlfriends who text me to cheer me on, who say, girl, I'm excited for you, send me pics, like, and that are with you on the ride. And it just really put wind in your sails. I was in Scotland, like I said, with my family a couple weeks ago, and I've got a really good friend. She's married, she's got older kids, they're, graduated from college, but she's always been just the biggest cheerleader among so many other cheerleader friends. And she was just like, oh my gosh, your Scotland pictures look amazing, blah 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 blah. And there's just, with your coveted entourage, there's just no jealousy. There are no games. Like, we all just want the best for each other. And it may not be my cup of tea, but I'll cheer them on, and vice versa. So it's just the messages that I get of, I love this for you, or I can't believe that happened, or tell me more about it, or send me pictures, or that looks so cool. Like, that entourage that is so encouraging. And you're this way too, like, races that I've run and places that have been. So it is leaning on the girlfriends that are enthusiastic for you, maybe discarding a few others who maybe not as enthusiastic for you, because there's nothing worse than trying to overcome something big in your life and then have to overcome something that somebody said as well, as a discouragement. Keep your cheering squad close, and you're gonna have a great time.
That's awesome. I love it. Just go for it. Go for it and stay safe and keep your cheer squad, and it's going to be great. Well, Nikki, thank you so much for taking your time to share all of this with us. And I feel strongly that it's going to have inspired some listeners out there that are like, okay, if Nikki can do it, I can do it. I can do this. So thank you.
Trust me, ladies, you can do it. If I can do it, you certainly can. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much. I hope that you walk away inspired and encouraged that if your dream is to travel and see this great big world that God created, but you don't have a person to travel with, fret not. You can do it all by yourself. You can do it. And Nikki so kindly shared ways for you to dip your toes in and try. For me personally, a way that I have dipped my toes in the waters of taking a vacation, or more of a staycation, really, all by myself, happened in June of 2023. After Chris, my husband, returned to Paris from a 2-week long business trip in the US, I needed a break. It had been a particularly hard time with my 4 kiddos that trip, including an emergency room visit for myself after a false alert for something called an ear stroke, which, since I have already had a stroke or had already had a stroke 3 years prior, I wasn't going to play around with. Anyway, Chris was way more than on board and helped me look up places that I could stay with our Marriott points in Paris for just one night away. I ended up staying in the 16th arrondissement or district of Paris, which is a lovely district and honestly not too far from where we live. The hotel felt luxurious when I walked into the front door. The man at the front desk told me I had a partial view of the Eiffel Tower. When I made my way into the room, there were French chocolates tightly wrapped on a tray, welcoming me in. And as I rounded the corner, a fluffy bed in white linens greeted me. The room was small but perfect. And as I looked out the window, I thought, all I see is apartment buildings. But when I made my way to the window and opened it, I looked to my left and there she was, the Eiffel Tower shining in all her glory. That night, I walked around the 16th and found a quaint cafe on the corner of a street where mainly locals were eating and having a drink after work. This was the part that I had been nervous about. Not that I had never eaten in a restaurant alone, but there had always been a purpose before, a reason, and this time there wasn't one. At least one that required me eating alone. But that night, as I sat there listening to 2 retired girlfriends chatting about life and watched the street traffic ebb and flow, enjoying my salad and a glass of wine, I wasn't nervous at all. In fact, I was quite relaxed and really enjoying myself. And so my thought in sharing that is maybe for those who are not ready to do 48 hours in Iceland or 48 hours in Dublin, like my amazing and adventurous friend Nikki, maybe simply a 24 or 48 hour staycation somewhere not so far from home might be a way to dip your toes in the waters of solo girl travel. Maybe, just maybe. Moving on to our Shan Select for this episode, I'm going to take you back to the 16th arrondissement of Paris, right across the street from where I ended up having breakfast that next morning during my staycation. There's a small restaurant with a big personality called Jacques. I recently went there for a friend's baby shower, and man, that group of women packed the house. But if the owner, Benjamin, and his staff hadn't been so amazing, I am not sure the event would have been what it was. The food was delicious. I had a succulent steak with chimichurri sauce, one of my favorite things ever, and French fries. But before I came, as I was a little bit late due to a meeting, there had been mini croque monsieurs, smoked salmon with salad, burrata cheese with sun-dried tomatoes, a delicious truffle dip, and more served as appetizers. The servers and Benjamin constantly checked on us, asking not only if we needed anything, but even if we wanted the music to be changed. All of these things made for a fantastic celebration of new life entering the world and made me think, wow, I really need to tell everyone about Jacques, the name of which comes from Benjamin's grandfather. I will include the link for the Instagram account of Jacques in the show notes. Once again, I am not an affiliate of Jacques, just a happy patron sharing the wealth of a wonderful experience. I hope you all have enjoyed these summer sit-down episodes, maybe even with a glass of lemonade or iced tea in hand on your front porch or balcony, enjoying the sun and the words of some amazing women and kiddos listening to episode 19 if you want to hear what my kids think of living abroad as you pass the time. Thank you all for listening. And speaking of listening, I would love to hear from you about topics that you would be interested in listening to. So if you would take a minute to DM me on Instagram, the link to the Expatriotical account is always in the show notes in your app. I would really appreciate it. And while you are there, if you would maybe share this episode with a friend, I would be so grateful. That's it for this episode, but don't worry, I'll meet you back here again with another new episode next week. Until then, keep enjoying that summer sunshine. This is Chandra Alley signing off and reminding you to live and travel in the know with Expatriotical.